Let's take a look at some errors in Python through an example problem using the Pythagorean theorem. So go ahead and find the link and save a copy in Drive, and then we'll take a look at the code together. Okay, so it says given two legs of a right triangle are 4 and 5, use Python to find the hypotenuse of the right triangle. And there's a reminder that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse of the right triangle. Okay, so here we have an attempt at some code. Now, whenever you get errors in your code, first of all, we're going to run the code and see what the output is. Because usually you're not aware, right, that you have any errors to begin with. You're running code and you see errors, and it's very common. And this is like sort of the most common error at the beginning of what's called a syntax error. So what I like to do is go to the last part, and it says maybe you meant double equals instead of equals. That's not really helpful. It says cannot assign to expression here, which maybe is helpful. The idea here is that this is sort of almost like a left to right thing, right? Where it's like this is some value, and you're trying to say the value equals c squared, and you can't actually do that. And so I think what the student is meaning here is more like c squared equals 4 squared plus 5 squared. Okay, so let's try that and see what we get. Okay, now we still get the same kind of an issue. So what's the issue here? The issue is that this is not a way to state a variable, okay? The way you might want to state c squared as a variable would be something like this, c squared. Okay, that's the appropriate syntax. Okay, now you can see the underlines go away, okay? And if you press Shift Enter now, the first line works. The second line says incomplete input. And so you can see this is often useful when you see these carets and it's pointing and there's something missing there. You know, it needs this parentheses. Okay, so that fixes that. So now if we press Shift Enter, it says name print is not defined. Well, we've used print. Remember about the color coding? Print should be color coded. This can happen where you accidentally leave out like a character like the I. So that's misspelled. If you ever get something that's not defined, the common error is actually that you're misspelling it. Okay, so the correct spelling is, of course, P-R-I-N-T. That looks good. Now, if you look at Colab, it's underlining the C. Okay, let's press Shift Enter. Well, it says it's not defined, right? It hasn't been defined. We define c squared. Okay, so we could certainly pronounce c squared, but the answer is actually c. And c is the square root of c squared. So you actually need another line here. So c would be c squared. And for the square root, recall that's to the 0.5 power. Okay, so now c has been defined. We're taking the square root of c squared, which is a totally appropriate way to do this. And we get the value of 1.0, which is not correct. And the reason why I know it's not correct is because if the legs are 4 and 5, the hypotenuse must be larger. And this is actually not the way we do exponentiation. We do exponentiation using the double asterisk, okay? And so now let's try it. We press Shift Enter, and this looks right. We get a value that's greater than the largest leg, 5, and it all looks clean. Just to go over it, so this says c squared is 4 squared plus 5 squared. So it's kind of nice. So you can first compute c squared, and then after that, you can actually get the value of c by taking the square root. You don't have to do it all as one big formula, but this does correct the errors in this problem. I would say this, when you're just getting started, number one, you're going to get errors, like everybody does. It's a big part of coding. And number two, look carefully at your code first, because you might just be able to see it. Like you might see that, oh, I didn't spell print correctly. Maybe you can just catch that. Look at the Colab underlines, right? And then read the last line of code to see if you can get any hints about what may need to be corrected. Furthermore, if you're not sure about some expressions, like if something goes to a completely wrong value, you can always look up a previous lesson like exponentiation to recall how that is done in Python. So it's a part of the journey, and one of my favorite things about programming, I will tell you, is not getting errors. I mean, errors can be fun. They're actually instructive. It's that once you get it right, you always have it right. And the code will just work. So you do runtime, restart session, and run all. This code will run top to bottom, and it will always run top to bottom because the code has been fixed. And keep your notebooks titled cleanly, not really an error, but a slight area of improvement. And keep working hard. You're doing a great job.